A heavily pregnant, emaciated dog, her frail body curled in a rusted cage. Found abandoned in a back alley by a kind passerby, Lucy had arrived at the shelter in a pitiful state, malnourished, dehydrated, and so weak she could barely lift her head. Her swollen belly, taut with unborn pups, only worsened her plight. The shelter was stretched beyond capacity, and Lucy's chances seemed grim. Emma wiped a tear from her cheek as she approached the cage, her steps heavy. Lucy's large brown eyes, clouded with pain and resignation, met hers, as if sensing the end was near. Lucy let out a weak whimper, her swollen belly moving up and down with short, shaky breaths. She was in pain, her thin body barely holding on. Emma had tried everything, meds, fluids, hours of careful attention, but Lucy just kept getting worse. The shelter's management, pushed by Jake, a tough, old-school staff member, had made up their minds. Lucy was suffering too much, and in Jake's words, a waste of resources. Earlier, he'd gotten in Emma's face, his voice full of contempt. "She's not going to live, Monroe. We can't waste resources on a dying dog." Now kneeling next to Lucy, Emma ran her shaky fingers through the dog's tangled fur. "I'm so sorry, girl," she whispered, her voice breaking as Jake's harsh words and her own doubts weighed her down. Lucy's eyes met hers, and in that quick moment, a silent cry for help broke through Emma's exhaustion. A spark of life that wouldn't give in, no matter how hard Jake tried to shut it down. It was as if Lucy was pleading for more time, a desperate bid for her unborn puppies to have a chance at life. But Emma knew the stark truth. Lucy was too frail, her odds of surviving childbirth hanging by a thread. Emma drew a shaky breath and steadied herself, preparing the syringe, the euthanasia solution shimmering coldly under the fluorescent glare. Her hands trembled as she neared Lucy, the weight of Jake's earlier scorn ringing in her ears. But right as the needle was about to touch Lucy's skin, something stopped Emma cold. A sharp, desperate cry burst from the dog, loud and alive, slicing through the dead quiet of the room. It wasn't just pain, it was a cry full of fight, like Lucy was refusing to give up. Emma stopped dead, her heart pounding as she noticed Lucy's shaky breaths change, her belly moving in steady waves. Her eyes went wide with shock. "No way," she mumbled, but it was clear as day. Lucy wasn't just slipping away, she was about to give birth. "Hang in there, girl," Emma whispered, the syringe dropping onto the tray with a clank as she tossed it aside. Her head was spinning, pushing Jake's snarky voice, "You're dreaming, Monroe!" out of her mind. She grabbed her stethoscope and pressed it softly against Lucy's big belly, holding her breath as she heard the tiny, quick thumps of little heartbeats. The pups were alive. Before continuing the story, we're on an exciting journey to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support means a lot to us. Like, share, and subscribe to be part of this story. Emma's hands flew into action, her training kicking in like a lifeline. She shouted for Ellie, her assistant, who just finished scrubbing down the surgery room. "Ellie, now!" Within moments, Ellie burst in, eyes wide with alarm. "She's in labor," Emma said, her voice taut with urgency, defiance flaring against Jake's shadow lurking in her mind. "We're saving her. Grab the oxygen tank and warm blankets. This is going to be a fight." Ellie gave a quick nod and bolted to get the stuff, while Emma stuck by Lucy's side. The contractions were coming fast now, Lucy's soft cries turning into rough gasps as her worn-out body battled to deliver. The mother dog was frail, her energy all but spent, yet a fierce determination burned in her eyes, a silent vow to cling to life. Emma's heart was racing as the first puppy started to come. She helped Lucy along, her hands steady even though her head was spinning with worry. Could Lucy make it through this? Could the pups even survive when their mom was so starved? The first little one slid out, a small, squirming ball of fur. Emma quickly cleared its nose and mouth, wrapped it in a warm blanket, and set it right by Lucy's head. Tired as she was, Lucy gave the puppy a gentle nudge with her nose, a sweet move that softened her worn-out face and sparked a shaky hope in Emma's chest. One by one, the pups came, each one just as tiny and frail as the last. Emma worked nonstop, her hands moving fast to keep every little life safe, a quiet fire pushing her past Jake's harsh doubts. Hours stretched on, and Lucy's energy started slipping bad. Sweat trickled down Emma's face as she fought to keep both mom and babies going, her grit growing stronger every time Jake's snide voice popped into her head, calling it all a dumb waste of time. When the sixth and final puppy emerged, Lucy let out a long, quivering breath, her trembling frame teetering on collapse. For a heartbeat, Emma braced for the worst. But then Lucy lifted her head, just enough to gaze at the six tiny lives pressed against her. A low, weary whine of contentment slipped from her throat, and she sank her head onto the blanket, eyes half-lidded but serene. "She did it," Ellie whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks as she watched the squirming puppies latch on to feed. Emma nodded, her own eyes brimming, voice thick as she rasped, "She did." Relief flooded her, but it was edged with tension. Lucy had triumphed over birth. The next few hours would be a crucible. If Lucy couldn't muster the strength to recover, she'd never nurse or sustain her puppies, and they were far too frail to endure without her. Emma and Ellie hovered by Lucy's side for hours, their vigil unbroken, administering fluids, nutrients, and oxygen with meticulous care. The puppies were healthy, feeding eagerly from their mother, but it was clear Lucy was still on the brink. As night deepened, exhaustion clawed at Emma, her body screaming for rest. Yet she rooted herself beside Lucy, unyielding. She'd sworn an oath to herself to fight for this dog, for her fragile litter, for the spark of life Lucy clung to with every shuddering breath. It wasn't until the gray pre-dawn hours that Emma glimpsed a shift. Lucy's gasps, once ragged and faint, smoothed into a steadier rhythm. Her pulse, feeble before, grew firm beneath Emma's fingertips. Though her eyes stayed shut, a quiet resilience radiated from her, a strength reborn. Emma exhaled a breath she'd been clutching tight. Lucy was going to pull through. 2 days passed slowly, but Lucy started to get better. Little by little, her worn-out body healed from the tough birth. The puppies did great under the shelter's care, their little squeaks filling the air and pushing out the memory of Jake's nasty words. On the third day, something amazing happened. Lucy, who could hardly move her head before, stood up on shaky legs. She looked at her pups, her tail giving a small wag, showing she knew they were okay now. Emma leaned on the doorway, a tired smile spreading on her face, her heart full of a quiet win. Not just because Lucy made it, but because she'd proved Jake's doubts dead wrong. Emma had witnessed countless tales of survival in her career, but this one carved a deeper mark. Lucy's toughness, her fierce will to keep going for her pups, was nothing short of a miracle. Ellie edged up beside her, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I can't believe it," she murmured, her gaze locked on the scene unfolding before them. "Neither can I," Emma replied, her voice steady with quiet pride. "But sometimes animals show us what grit really looks like, more than some people ever will." As days turned into weeks, Lucy kept getting better. She wasn't that weak, starving dog on the edge of death anymore. Her fur turned shiny, her eyes glowed with life, and her love for her puppies grew stronger every day. One afternoon, Emma hung out in the shelter's courtyard, watching Lucy play with her puppies in the warm sunlight. The little ones rolled over each other, their tiny tails wagging like crazy as they explored their new world. Lucy kept watch, her mom instincts strong and steady. A family looking to adopt walked up, moving slow at first, until their girl, maybe 8 years old, gasped in excitement. "Mom, Dad, look at the puppies," she squealed, pulling her parents toward the courtyard, her happiness lighting up the place. Emma gave them a big smile as they checked out Lucy and her crew. The girl dropped to her knees and one puppy wobbled over, sniffing her hand with a twitchy nose. She laughed, picking it up and hugging it tight, her joy lifting Emma's tired heart. "Can we adopt them?" the dad asked, his serious face softening as he watched his daughter. Emma nodded, her heart full. "Yep, they're ready. They've been through a lot, but they're good to go for their forever homes. Shows some things are worth all the hard work." The mom bent down, petting Lucy's smooth fur, and Lucy's tail wagged back, a sign of how far she'd come. "What about the mom? She's gorgeous," the mother said, her hand resting on Lucy's fur. "She's a fighter," Emma replied, her voice full of pride. "She almost didn't make it, but she's tougher than anyone could have guessed." The family shared a look, their smiles lighting up like they'd just won something special. "Looks like we've got our new family members," the dad said, grinning big as he watched his daughter, totally smitten with the puppy in her arms. As they started the adoption paperwork, a warm feeling spread through Emma's chest, one she hadn't felt in a while. Lucy had pulled through, not just hanging on, but really coming back strong, and now she and her pups were headed to loving homes. Later that evening, after the family left with 2 puppies and a plan to come back for Lucy when she was ready, Emma sat alone in her office, thinking over everything that had happened. She'd come so close to giving up on Lucy that day, nearly losing not just her, but the 6 little ones now safe with a family. Through her small office window, she looked out at the shelter yard glowing in the sunset. Lucy was there, playing with her remaining pups, her skinny body now healthy and full, her fur shiny, her eyes bright with a life Emma hadn't thought possible when she first got here. Emma leaned back in her chair, her heart full. The shelter threw new challenges at her every day, but moments like this, where hope won out, made it all worth it. Lucy had been a miracle, a tale of survival etched into Emma's soul forever, one that stood as a quiet defiance against every doubt Jake had hurled her way. A gentle knock on the door snapped her from her reverie. Ellie poked her head in, her face aglow with the same quiet triumph of warming Emma's chest. "Hey," Ellie said softly, "just thought you'd want to know. The puppies are fed, and Lucy's resting with them now." Emma's lips curved into a smile. "Thanks, Ellie. You've been a rock these past few weeks." Ellie waved off the praise, though her cheeks pinked with pride. "Lucy's the real hero here," she said. "The way she fought for those puppies." Ellie trailed off, shaking her head in awe. "It's unreal." Emma nodded, her thoughts drifting back to that pivotal moment in the exam room. The split-second choice to halt the syringe, defying Jake's barked order to end it quick. The sudden realization Lucy was in labor. It could have ended so differently, and the chill of that near miss prickled her spine. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't caught it?" Ellie asked, voicing the shadow lurking in Emma's mind. Emma's eyes dropped to the syringe that still sat on the counter, unused. "Every day, but something stopped me. Something in Lucy's eyes." Ellie stepped into the room and took a seat opposite Emma. "You were right to listen. Look at them now. Those puppies have a whole future ahead of them, and Lucy has a new lease on life." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what they had done sinking in. Sometimes the world felt heavy, especially when faced with so much suffering. But in that quiet moment, Emma felt lighter than she had in months. Lucy's story was a beacon that even in the bleakest hours, hope could claw its way through. The next morning, Emma arrived at the shelter early, the crisp air a balm after a night of fitful sleep haunted by what-ifs. She found Lucy and her puppies nestled in their kennel, the mother dog finally at ease, her pups tucked tight against her belly. Lucy lifted her head as Emma stepped in, her soft brown eyes locking with hers. And for the first time since her arrival, her tail gave a slow, tentative wag, a fragile but fierce sign of trust. "You've come a long way, haven't you, girl?" Emma murmured, kneeling by the kennel. She slipped her hand through the bars, stroking Lucy's head, fingers tracing the thickening fur that had replaced her gaunt frame. "I'm so proud of you." The puppies stirred, their tiny paws twitching as they burrowed closer to their mother. The runt, a patchwork of white and black, flopped over, baring its belly. Emma let out a soft chuckle. Those early days had been a gamble for this little one, struggling to nurse amid stronger siblings. But Lucy's patient care had pulled it through. Lucy dipped her head, gently licking the runt's crown before settling her chin on her paws, her steady gaze fixed on Emma. Words were beyond her, yet gratitude pulsed in the air, a bond forged in the fight Emma had waged. The day blurred into routine, tending animals, doling out meds, nodding to adoption visitors. But Emma's mind kept circling back to Lucy and her litter, marveling at their swift turnaround. Each wag of Lucy's tail, each squeak from her pups, was a testament to resilience. Emma checked on them several times throughout the day, her heart swelling each time she saw their progress. By day's end, a rare peace settled over her. The shelter had buzzed with activity, yet no crises had erupted, no hearts had broken, and as she readied to leave, she felt the weight of Lucy's darkest days lifting at last. That evening, as the sun sank low, streaking the sky with hues of pink and gold, an unexpected visitor broke the shelter's calm. Emma was hunched over paperwork when footsteps echoed toward the front desk. She glanced up to find a tall man in his early 40s standing there, his warm but hesitant smile framed by weathered features. His clothes were threadbare, his rugged air hinting at a life spent under open skies. "Can I help you?" Emma asked, rising and crossing to the desk, her voice steady. The man's eyes roamed the room, pausing on the dogs dozing in their kennels. "I heard you had a dog here, a pregnant one that just gave birth," he said, his tone tentative, yet laced with something deeper. Word of Lucy's story had spread online after a local news post, reaching far beyond the shelter's walls. Emma's pulse quickened. Word of Lucy and her puppies had spread like wildfire. But this man carried a different weight in his gaze, a flicker of recognition she couldn't place. "We do," she said, eyeing him closely. "She and her pups are thriving now, against all odds, I might add. They're not quite ready for adoption yet, though." The man nodded, his lips tightening, as if wrestling with words he wasn't sure how to free, his quiet intensity stirring Emma's curiosity. After a moment, he cleared his throat, his voice barely above a whisper. I think that dog might be mine." Emma's brow creased in puzzlement. "Yours?" The man's gaze fell to the floor, heavy with shame and longing. "Her name's Lucy. I lost her a few months back. She bolted one night, and I couldn't track her down. Been searching ever since, though I figured she was gone for good." A tide of disbelief surged through Emma. Could this be real? Could Lucy have belonged to him all this time? "Are you sure it's her?" Emma asked, her tone cautious yet edged with a flicker of hope. "She was a wreck when she got here, barely alive." The man nodded, his voice cracking with raw emotion. "I'm sure. Lucy was my world. When she vanished, I fell apart, but I never stopped looking. Never gave up." Emma's chest tightened with empathy as his words sank in. She'd seen too many animals discarded by callous hands, but this man bore the look of genuine loss, like a piece of his soul had been torn away. "I can take you to see her," Emma said softly. The man lifted his eyes, a spark of desperate hope igniting within them. "Please, I just need to know." Emma guided him down the hall toward the kennels, her mind a whirl of possibilities. If he spoke the truth, Lucy might have a loving home waiting, but caution tethered Emma's soaring thoughts. Lucy had clawed through hell, and Emma wouldn't release her to anyone without ironclad certainty. When they reached Lucy's kennel, Emma paused a few steps back, giving the man room to approach. Lucy lay curled with her puppies pressed against her, but as he edged forward, something extraordinary stirred. Her ears twitched upright, her head snapped up, eyes flaring with recognition. A soft, stunned whimper slipped from her throat, her body taut as she sniffed the air. The man dropped to his knees before the kennel, tears brimming in his eyes. "Lucy," he rasped, his voice splintering with emotion. Lucy hauled herself to her feet, her tail lashing with wild joy. She surged to the kennel's edge, shoving her nose through the bars, her gaze riveted on the man before her. "It's you," he choked, thrusting his hand through to graze her fur. Lucy's tongue darted out, lapping at his fingers, her frame quaking with elation. The reunion was unmistakable. This was her owner, her family. Emma's vision blurred with tears as she watched, her chest tight with certainty. Lucy had clawed her way back to the one who cherished her most. The man turned to Emma, tears streaking his weathered face. I don't know how to thank you. I thought she was gone for good." Emma smiled, her heart brimming. "No thanks needed. Lucy's been through hell, but she's a fighter. She survived for her pups and for you." In the end, Lucy's tale was one of hope, grit, and love, a defiance of every odds stacked against her, a reunion with the man who'd never quit searching. A family had come by earlier, adopting 2 of her thriving puppies, leaving 4 by her side, all destined for a future of joy with homes she'd fought to give them. As Lucy settled back into her kennel, her 4 tiny puppies dozing contentedly at her side, the reunion with her long-lost owner unfolded like a miracle, one Emma would carry forever. The shelter had long been a crucible of grief and redemption for countless animals, but this burst of unadulterated joy, the unshakable bond between a dog and her owner, crystallized why it all mattered. Lucy's odyssey was a blazing testament to resilience, to the extraordinary lengths animals stretch for love and survival. As Emma watched Lucy and her owner walk out of the shelter together, a wave of peace crashed over her, warm and heavy with meaning. She'd fought for this, staked everything on a gut feeling when the odds screamed to give up, her hands trembling but resolute as she chose life over surrender for that frail dog. In a world tangled with chaos and heartbreak, stories like this, of hope rising from ashes, of healing stitched from pain, of reunions that gripped the soul, fueled the fire in her chest, the unyielding drive that pushed her to keep going. And as the door swung shut behind them, Emma's smile held fast, tears prickling her eyes, her heart ablaze with the certainty that some endings were just the tender start of something breathtakingly beautiful. Thank you for watching. We're on an exciting journey to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support means a lot to us. Like, share, and subscribe to be part of this story.